10 years ago, I was 46 and sitting in the passenger seat of his luxury sedan, laughing at a stupid joke he told. Seconds later, we struck a man on the highway. I was dazed, bruised, and screaming. He was calm. "I'll lose everything if this goes public," Timon whispered. "You're my wife, Marion. Just take the fall. It'll only be for a month or two, and I will bail you out. I swear on our son's name." Back then, I believed in things like vows and loyalty. I believed in Timon, so I lied. I said I was the one driving. I confessed. And just like that, my life stopped. But that month turned into a decade, and my loving husband, he never showed up at a single parole hearing until I was sent out from prison. Not even my best friend, Charlotte. Now, I am 56, and Timon, he is 58, but looking younger than his age. And today was the day of his fourth company's grand opening. I stood beside him, older, worn down, but smiling like a woman still willing to believe in second chances. He handed me a sleek black envelope and said it was my gift for the event. But inside was a single crisp $2 bill. I froze. My fingers tightened around it, but then I saw Charlotte Winsley holding the same envelope. Relief washed over me. Maybe it was a symbolic gift for everyone. But that night, I saw Charlotte's Instagram post. "Congratulations to Mr. Salvador on the grand opening. The boss is incredibly generous. He gifted me $50 million. The photo showed her grinning next to Timon holding a check. The comments were full of hearts, champagne emojis, and remarks like "power couple," and so it's official now. Timon didn't even flinch when I showed him the post. Instead, he looked at me like I was an embarrassment. "You just got out of prison, Marion," he said, almost like he pitied me. "It's not a good time to go public. Let's keep our marriage quiet. For now, just call me boss in front of others." Then, from the hallway, I heard the front door swing open. Our son, Cedric, had just returned from his Euro trip. Elle, his 7-year-old daughter, burst in first, demanding attention, dragging a designer suitcase and holding a new tablet in her chocolate-stained fingers. "Grandma, this house smells funny," she whined. Cedric tossed his branded jacket over the couch and barely looked in my direction. He glanced at Timon, then muttered without guilt, "You shouldn't have come back, Mom. The company image doesn't need more noise." I swallowed. "You're better off where you were," Cedric added flatly. 3 meals a day, no cameras, no scandals. That was a safer life for everyone. Then he turned to Elle with a smile and handed her a wrapped box, like I wasn't even standing there. And right then, Timon liked Charlotte's post, right in front of me, and leave for a shower. I wiped the tears before they fell and dialed a number I'd memorized years ago, his biggest rival. "Let's work together," I said. "You took the fall for Timon Salvador 10 years. That's loyalty. Or insanity," his rival said to me coldly. "Why now?" I rubbed the edges of that $2 bill between my fingertips, bitterness soaking through my skin. He was just starting to climb the business world. One wrong move, one scandal, and it would have all gone to hell. So I took the fall, because I didn't want his sacrifice to go to waste. I let out a hollow laugh, but now, I'm over it. Just as I hung up, I saw him. Timon standing by the doorway, his hair damp from the shower, a towel slung around his neck. Suspicion flickered in his eyes. "Over what?" he asked. "The chief operating officer," I said, not bothering to lie. He blinked. Then, oddly enough, he smiled a little. "Good. I was going to offer it to Charlotte anyway. You can start as a clerk." A clerk. The words hit me like ice water. I did 10 years for him. I lost my youth, my freedom, and my voice behind bars, just so his business empire could rise. And now, I was nothing but an errand girl in the company I helped protect with my silence. Before I could even respond, Cedric strolled into the room with a smirk and a juice bottle in hand. "Come on, Mom," he said, plopping himself onto the edge of the armrest like it was a throne. "You sound really bitter. Jealous even. Charlotte worked for that position. You were away." I turned to him slowly, my chest tightening. He shrugged casually. "Look, I'm just saying. She's been loyal to Dad. She knows how the company runs. She deserves to be cool. You can't just come back after rotting for 10 years and expect what a throne." Then his daughter, Elle, came skipping in with her oversized sunglasses and a glittering designer purse. "Mommy Charlotte is prettier," she chimed in, proudly twirling. "She smells like flowers and gives me lots of dresses. Not like you." You don't have money. You were in jail. She said it like a joke. Like it was funny. Cedric didn't even correct her. He just chuckled and sipped his drink. Timon said nothing. He didn't defend me. He didn't even blink. Without shame, Timon pulled a document from his briefcase and tossed it on the table. A secret marriage agreement, he said indifferently. It's for the benefit of the company. We keep our status hidden. Cleaner image. Secret marriage agreement. The words bled into my vision, like poison. 10 years ago, we'd signed real marriage papers the night before I was taken away. That promise of a shared future kept me breathing through the cold, the silence, and the steel bars. And now, he wanted me erased. Still, I picked up the pen. Not out of hope. Not out of love. Out of pure, scorched resolve. He reached forward, pressing his hand over mine. Aren't you even going to think about it? I've thought about everything, I said, signing my name in one fluid motion. For a moment, he was quiet. Then, in a tone softer than I expected, he added, Once the company stabilizes, I'll make it up to you properly. A notification pinged in our shared company group chat. Charlotte had just been promoted to Chief Operating Officer. Messages flooded in. You deserve it, Charlie. We all saw your hard work these past years. If you're Kuo today, you'll be Mrs. Salvador tomorrow. We better all start treating you like royalty. Then Charlotte sent a winking emoji. A few seconds later, a mocking follow-up came in. But Marion's still lucky. After all, not everyone gets a second chance after killing someone. The boss is so kind as to give her anything at all. I stared at the screen, heart-thudding, until I caught sight of Timon's face, Cedric and Elle's face. He was smiling. They're all smiling at her, smiling in a way they never once did for me. I looked down at that dollar bill still in my hand. 10 years in prison. $2 in return. And a husband who wished I'd never come back. But I did. And I wasn't leaving quietly. To comply with the secret marriage agreement, Timon moved out of the master bedroom and into the guest room like I was a tenant he barely tolerated. He laid out the rules like a CEO giving policy to a new hire. No more sharing a car, he said. No talking to me at the office unless it's business. Refer to me as Mr. Salvador, strictly professional. And the last one stung the most. Charlotte and I have a public image. It's all for the company. Don't stir up drama. We're too old for that. He didn't wait for me to respond. Just like 10 years ago, he made a decision and left me to deal with the mess. Then, he disappeared for 3 days. On the second day, I sat curled on the couch, a fever crawling up my spine and a dizziness I couldn't shake. I tried calling him. Nothing. So I turned to the one person who was supposed to be our Cedric. He was passing through the living room, on his way out with Elle tugging at his sleeve, whining about wanting sushi instead of the catered food in the kitchen. Cedric, I asked softly, do you know where your father is? He didn't even glance at me. He said, don't talk to him unless he wants to talk to you. Then he shrugged, grabbed his car keys and added coldly, you should probably just leave him alone, Mom. You're not helping. He was out the door before I could say anything else. That night, my phone finally rang. My hands trembled as I answered the call. I had a fever. And I'm on a trip, he cut me off. Handle it yourself. You're not new to doing things alone. I closed my eyes. His voice echoed, sharp and distant. You understand, I whispered. Just above silence. But then came the voice that made my blood boil. Timon, can you help me lock this necklace? The clasp so tiny, Charlotte. Behind him. Again, her tone wasn't innocent. It was intentional. He hung up fast, but it was too late. I sat in that cold clinic for another hour, my body burning, but not from the fever anymore. The next morning, I opened Instagram. Her profile had changed. A matching couple avatar, Charlotte and Timon, her head leaning on his shoulder, his hand around her waist. I stared at the image too long. I remembered asking him once years ago if we could do that. Something small, something sweet. He laughed back then. What are we, teenagers? That's tacky. But I guess it wasn't tacky when it was Charlotte, not when the prison wife was locked out of the public frame. My phone buzzed. Timon was suddenly flooding me with messages, voicemails. I sent one reply. Please understand this is my rest period, Mr. Salvador. When I returned to the office, nothing had changed. My desk was piled with paperwork. The whispers behind my back were louder than before. Tow them. I was the ex-con, the boss kept around out of guilt. A relic of the past. They didn't know I was the reason this company still existed. So I packed the last of the personal things I had foolishly brought. A couple mugs, a framed photo, old keepsakes, and shoved them into a black garbage bag. I was ready to throw it out when Timon appeared like a ghost. He grabbed my arm and dragged me into the stairwell. "What's this?" he snapped, snatching the bag. "You've got time to clean up trash, but can't answer my calls." The heavy scent of Charlotte's perfume on him made me step back. "It stings," I replied. I said, "It was my rest time." "And you called me Mr. Salvador. You told me to." He narrowed his eyes, lips curling into disgust. "You're acting petty, Marion. Don't make me start resenting you." Then he flung the garbage bag down the stairwell. The crash echoed like a gunshot. Broken glass shattered memories. And just like that, he turned and left. I stared at the scattered remains of my past. A cracked photo frame, a mug with our wedding date, a tea tin dented beyond recognition. I smiled bitterly. I knelt and gathered the pieces with steady hands. No more hoping, no more asking, no more enduring. That night, I called a lawyer. By the next morning, I had a draft of the divorce agreement. When I headed to the print room to make a copy, the door opened. Timon stood there. We met each other's eyes like strangers. I held out the papers. "Sign when you have time, Mr. Salvador." He didn't even skim the document. He flipped straight to the last page, signed his name with that same cold efficiency, and handed it back. Then, without missing a beat, he said, "Join me for dinner tonight. Big investor. Play your part, Marion. Drink on my behalf." I stared at him. "You don't need me to drink for you." Charlotte's voice interrupted from behind him. "Oh, the boss is being sweet again," she giggled. "He remembered I can't drink tonight. My cold's acting up, you know. Being 53 and sick is just extra stressful." I looked at both of them, the perfect couple in the hallway light, my husband and my replacement. Charlotte dropped gracefully into the seat beside Timon, looping her arm around his like she owned it. When her eyes landed on me, her lips twisted into a pout. "Mr. Salvador is overreacting again. It's just a mild cold. But he banned me from working or drinking," she said, leaning closer to him. "I practically begged him to let me attend tonight." Timon chuckled softly, tapping her nose with a mock scolding expression. "If I didn't keep an eye on you, you'd skip your meds and then complain that you're dying over a sniffle." The two of them looked like a scene out of a romantic drama. Whispers, laughter, gentle touches. For a moment, I simply watched. There was something unfamiliar in the way Timon looked at her. Tenderness, amusement, care. All things he never offered me, not even when I stood beside him on our wedding day. I clutched the divorce papers inside my coat pocket. Oddly, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt relief. At the upscale restaurant, Timon greeted the corporate partners with his usual charm before gesturing toward the woman at his side. "This is Charlotte Winsley, our chief operating officer." Charlotte flashed a flawless smile and adjusted the sparkling diamond necklace around her throat. When he turned to me, his tone shifted. Polite, but distant. "And this is Marion. She's Charlotte's personal assistant." That word clanged louder than it should have. Assistant. The senior partner's brows twitched in recognition. "Ah, I remember her," he said with thinly veiled disdain. "She served time, didn't she? Some kind of car accident where she killed someone." "Yes, Mr. Salvador is quite loyal to keep her employed." Timon froze beside Charlotte. He glanced at me briefly, just enough to register the tension, then forced a bland smile. "Life has its complications." To my left, Cedric sat proudly, vice president of Salvador Holdings and Corporation, perfectly at ease in his polished navy suit. He laughed with Charlotte like they shared a private joke, refilling her glass with water, pulling her chair in, handing her napkins. Attentive, protective, affectionate. Like she was his mother. Not once did he look my way, not once did he ask if I had eaten. "Honestly," Cedric said with a relaxed chuckle to the table, "if my dad had married Charlotte first, life would have been a lot smoother. No drama, just grace and strategy." Charlotte smiled sweetly, laying her hand gently over his. "You're such a good son," she whispered. "My daughter already calls her Mama Charlotte," Cedric added with pride. "It feels right." I said nothing. He didn't even glance at me. No remorse, no shame. I said nothing. During the meeting, Timon and Charlotte sat close enough their shoulders touched. Every now and then he'd glance at me, waiting expecting me to offer to drink on Charlotte's behalf. He knew she didn't want to touch a drop in front of these investors. She wanted to look delicate, cared for. I stayed silent. Across the table, Timon looked as if he might stand. But I rose first and excused myself to the restroom. As I stepped out of the stall, I found Charlotte standing at the sink with her arms folded, lips curled in smug amusement. She didn't waste time. "You know," she said, watching me through the mirror, "if I were you, I wouldn't even have the nerve to show up tonight. It's tragic, really, being pitied by your own husband in front of strangers." I calmly turned on the tap, washing my hands without meeting her gaze. "That's not your concern, Miss Winsley." "Oh, but it is." She stepped closer, eyes scanning me from head to toe. "Still wearing those old shoes. Isn't that the same blazer you wore when you got out of prison?" I didn't flinch. She smiled, cruel and condescending. "I forgot. Timon probably spent his entire wardrobe budget on me, custom Valentino, limited edition. You wouldn't know the brand even if you Googled it." Her voice dropped lower. "He tells me everything, Marion, including how your son wishes I was his real mother. Actually, he said he has no plan of letting you out of the prison. That was the safest place for someone like you. That one landed deeper than I expected. I wanted to slap her. I wanted to scream. But I forced myself to stay still until her voice dropped into a whisper, intimate and sharp. "Do you want to know the truth, Marion?" She waited. I didn't respond. She leaned in closer, her reflection almost brushing mine. "Cedric was never your son. He was mine." My heart slowed. "What?" She smiled wider. "You gave birth to a boy that night, yes, but he didn't make it." Timon panicked. "I was in the same ward and I had a baby the same night. Cedric was Timon's son. Our son. Timon swapped them. Your son died. Mine lived. Cedric's mine." She tilted her head, watching for my reaction like it was a game. "I've always planned to tell him. Someday, maybe now's the time." A twisted laugh escaped her lips. "Funny, right? You did 10 years thinking you were protecting your family, but it was never yours to protect." I stared at the mirror, not at her, but at myself, barely breathing. And in that moment I knew. I had known for years. That quiet instinct I buried deep inside me. The way Cedric never really looked at me the same after he turned 5. How he always lit up more when Charlotte was around. How she used to show up at my house when we were still friends, arms full of gifts, home-cooked meals, and imported toys. Always acting like she was doing me a favor. But she never let Cedric go. She clutched him every time she visited, like he was hers. He clung to her too. I remembered one afternoon vividly, how she insisted on taking him to his school play when I got called into a late shift. "Don't worry, I'll cheer loud enough for the both of us." She did. She even brought a banner with his name, and when I arrived late and out of breath, Cedric had already run into her arms. I brushed it off back then. Told myself it was just Charlotte being extra, and she just lost her son. Told myself it didn't matter, because I was still his mother. But now, her words made everything snap into place like a cruel puzzle. I felt it all at once, the betrayal, the loss, the ache that had no name for 10 long years. I bit the inside of my cheek hard, refusing to cry. The taste of blood was the only thing that reminded me I still had control, that I was still standing. Charlotte watched me in silence, waiting for a reaction. But I gave her none. I dried my hands, smoothed my coat, and walked past her like she didn't exist. Back in the private room, I gathered my things, preparing to leave quietly. Timon stood and stepped in my way. "Don't go yet," he said, lowering his voice. "I'll take you home later." Before I could respond, Charlotte burst in from the hallway, breathing heavily, eyes wide, just dramatic enough to steal the room's attention. Timon instantly turned away from me, hurrying toward her. "What's wrong?" Charlotte checked her purse, then her coat pockets, her panic rising with every second. "My bracelet, the custom-made one you gave me. It's gone." The moment Charlotte gasped about her missing bracelet, the energy in the private room shifted. People sprang from their chairs like they'd rehearsed it. It was a birthday gift from Timon. Charlotte clutched her throat dramatically. $10 million, custom-made. It's irreplaceable. She began circling the room, checking under napkins, beneath handbags, around the floor, her every movement theatrical. I didn't need a genius to see what this was. Another setup. Another scene. Another chance to humiliate me. I silently picked up my purse and headed for the door. All I wanted was to leave that room and the poison inside it. But she got there first. Charlotte stepped in front of me in her glittering heels and fake concern. "Marion, do you mind if I check your bag? Just to clear things up." Otherwise, you know how people talk. I looked her dead in the eyes. I didn't take your bracelet. I'm too tired to entertain your nonsense, Miss Winsley. I took a step forward, but she reached out and grabbed my bag. The strap snapped off in the scuffle and the contents spilled onto the floor. Lip balm, loose change, tissues, and one glittering, unmistakable bracelet. A hush fell over the room. The air was thick, silent, accusing. I stared at the bracelet like it was a ghost. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even gone near Charlotte's belongings. But when I looked up, she was already giving me that smug, calculated stare. "What the hell are you doing?" I whispered. "Why are you doing this?" She clutched her chest like I had betrayed her. "Oh, Marion, I trusted you. I really thought prison might have changed you. But it seems you are not." My breath caught in my throat as I turned and met the eyes of the room. All of them filled with suspicion, discomfort, and silent judgment. But it was Timon's face that truly gutted me. He looked disgusted. His brows furrowed, mouth twisted in disbelief. "I didn't take it," I said hoarsely. "Timon, you know I didn't take it." He didn't blink. Charlotte sniffled beside him, hugging the bracelet to her chest like a relic. "This bracelet means a lot to me," she said tearfully. I can't believe she'd stoop this low. I don't think I can keep working in the same building as her. The senior partner didn't wait. "That's it, Mr. Salvador. This collaboration is done. I won't associate with theft and scandal." He stormed out with his team. Then Cedric spoke. His voice was sharp, loud, designed to land where it hurt the most. "Unbelievable. First you killed someone, now you're stealing." He scoffed and shook his head with a sneer. "This is why I never wanted you back. You're a stain, Mom. I'm embarrassed to even share your last name." His words hit harder than the slap that came next. Because the moment I turned to Timon, hoping for even a flicker of disbelief, he struck me, right across the face. The sting was sharp. The humiliation burned deeper. My ears rang as I turned to him in shock. His voice was low, cold, and steady. "I brought you here hoping you'd at least pretend to have some decency left." Cedric didn't stop. "Charlotte warned me you'd drag us down again," he said with venom. "Elle doesn't need a grandmother like you. I don't need a mother like you." His face twisted. "Honestly, I wish you'd stayed in prison." I stared at him, at the boy I raised, at the son I believed in. And suddenly I didn't see my child, I saw a stranger. "Have you really forgotten why I went to prison?" I asked quietly, looking back at Timon. "Forgotten that I sat in that courtroom for you?" He looked away like my voice was static. "I should have known you'd embarrass me again," he muttered. My fingers trembled as I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone and held it toward him. "Then call the police." Timon looked at the phone like it was poison, but he didn't take it. We stared at each other for a long, heavy moment. His silence told me everything. Eventually, he scoffed under his breath and turned to Charlotte. He clipped the bracelet back onto her wrist with tender precision, murmuring something reassuring in her ear. Then he placed a hand on her lower back and guided her toward the exit, like I had never been there at all. I stood in the private room alone, surrounded by silence, shame, and the last pieces of a life I had already let go of. I gathered my spilled items with shaky hands, threw everything into my coat, and walked out. I didn't go home. I went straight to the airport. It was nearing midnight at the terminal. I sat by the gate with my coat wrapped around me, fingers hovering over my phone. I was halfway through drafting my resignation when the screen lit up. "Timon Salvador, termination notice. Don't come back to the company. Stay home and reflect on what you've done." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound that startled the woman next to me. I scrolled through my gallery, found the photo I took of his signature on the divorce agreement, and sent it to him. Then I typed, "Timon, I sincerely wish you and Charlotte a long and public marriage. But let's finalize our divorce certificate soon. Otherwise, I'll be taking legal action for bigamy." Within seconds, my phone exploded with calls. 10, 15, 20. All from Timon. "Too late. I am done.